Every major crime begins with something small. A missed phone call, a forgotten lie, a detail that was never meant to be noticed. But what if that detail was the very thing that exposed everything? If you're drawn to the darker side of human nature, the hidden, the overlooked, the nearly perfect, subscribe to CrimeCortex. We tell true crime stories through precision, empathy, and the kind of insight only AI can help unlock. And don't forget to tap the bell because the next twist is never far away. It was supposed to be nothing. A wrong name on a shipping label. A receipt that didn't match. A neighbor who noticed one light on at the wrong time. Just a small mistake. One of those everyday glitches we barely pay attention to. But this one cracked open a secret no one saw coming. Behind that mistake was a truth so dark, so meticulously hidden, it would take seasoned detectives, forensic experts, and AI-powered pattern tracking just to piece together what really happened. This is not just a crime. This is what happens when the smallest slip exposes the unthinkable. Rachel Monroe wasn't the kind of person people worried about. She was steady, reliable. 34 years old, a school librarian with a quiet smile and a love for old books. She lived alone in a small rental house just outside of town, the kind of place with wind chimes on the porch and garden gloves hanging by the door. Every morning she made tea. Every evening she fed the neighborhood strays. Her life was peaceful, predictable, almost forgettable, until it wasn't. Rachel had no enemies, no scandals, no secrets anyone could see. But that's the thing about quiet people in quiet towns. Sometimes they're holding on to something just loud enough to destroy everything. And when that something slipped, it started a chain of events that would lead investigators down a path no one expected. Because the truth about Rachel Monroe wasn't hiding. It was waiting to be discovered. It started with a delivery. A package, meant for Rachel, was dropped at the wrong house. 2 doors down at 1448 Willow Lane. Same street. Same last name on the mailbox. A simple mistake. The neighbor, Mr. Halvorson, didn't think much of it. He'd received Rachel's mail before. But when he picked up the box to bring it over, it felt heavy. Not the usual book-shaped parcel she always got. And then he saw the label. Not her name, his. A name no one had spoken in 5 years. A name that shouldn't be on any label, let alone on her mail. Jeremy Holloway. Rachel's ex-boyfriend. A man who'd gone missing. Police had ruled it a cold case. No leads. No body. Just a string of texts, a note left on his computer, and a trail that ended at her front door, but never went further. When Mr. Halvorson opened the package, everything changed. Inside wasn't what he expected. Not books. Not clothes. But personal documents. Photos. A USB drive. One covered in what looked like dried blood. He called the police. That package, the one misplaced by a distracted driver, was the first crack in Rachel Monroe's perfect story. A mistake no one was supposed to make. A mistake that would finally uncover the truth. The police arrived at Rachel's home that afternoon. She answered the door in a cardigan and slippers, calm as ever. She smiled politely, said she had no idea what they were talking about. That she hadn't spoken to Jeremy in years. That he'd left her just like the note had said. But when they showed her the package, the one never meant to be seen, her expression changed. Not panic. Not denial. Just pause. Inside, the USB held dozens of files. PDFs, photos, voice recordings. It was a journal of sorts, labeled and time-stamped meticulously. Each file detailed parts of Jeremy's life. His routines. His passwords. His final weeks. And one folder stood out, titled simply, Insurance. In it were digital copies of his driver's license, financial records, scanned forms with forged signatures. And one document that changed everything. A life insurance policy, recently updated, with Rachel Monroe listed as the sole beneficiary. The kicker? The policy had been submitted days after Jeremy was last seen alive. The police searched her house. In the attic, behind a false panel, they found a fireproof lockbox. Inside, more documents, a burner phone, and a flash drive containing a video, security footage from a cabin in the woods, showing Jeremy entering, but never coming out. The story she'd held together for 5 years had finally started to collapse. And it all began with a package delivered to the wrong doorstep. Rachel Monroe had been planning it for months. Jeremy Holloway wasn't just an ex. He was a problem. According to her carefully cultivated narrative, he was manipulative, emotionally unstable, prone to disappearing for days at a time. She told friends he was drifting. Told coworkers he might leave town. Told herself that no one would miss him for long. and for a while they didn't. The last time Jeremy was seen, he was heading to a cabin he and Rachel used to rent in the mountains. He'd taken a week off work, told his sister he needed time to think, that he was trying to patch things up with someone. Rachel followed him up there 2 days later. The cabin's security system, disabled that night, still held traces of its last footage. Jeremy entering, Rachel arriving hours later. Then silence. No more movement. Investigators now believe the murder happened sometime around 2:13 a.m. She used sleeping pills, traced back to a prescription she had filled under a false name. There were no signs of struggle, just one fractured skull and a trail of meticulously cleaned evidence. The body was never found, but Rachel had disposed of it somewhere along the mountain route, aided by timing, darkness, and planning. For 5 years the case went cold, and it might have stayed that way, if not for a shipping label with the wrong name and the wrong address. What Rachel Monroe didn't account for wasn't the police. It was chance. A small human error. The kind of mistake that brings down entire lies. Once the discovery was made, the case accelerated quickly. Detectives reopened Jeremy Holloway's missing persons file and reclassified it as a homicide investigation. With the newly surfaced documents, burner phone and cabin footage, they built a timeline that Rachel had worked hard to erase. They subpoenaed her digital history. What they found painted a much darker picture. Search queries about body decomposition, remote burial sites, life insurance loopholes. One search, dated the day after Jeremy disappeared, simply read, "How long before someone is declared legally dead?" Forensic techs recovered deleted messages from an old hard drive. Messages where Jeremy expressed fear of being followed, of Rachel watching him even after their breakup. One voice memo recorded on his phone just 3 days before he vanished, ended with, "If anything happens to me, it's her. It's always been her." That memo would later be played in court. Rachel was brought in for questioning. Reserved. But this time her answers didn't line up. Her alibi cracked. Cell tower data placed her near the cabin on the night Jeremy died. Surveillance from a gas station captured her car on the return trip, trunk visibly heavier than when she arrived. Confronted with the evidence, she didn't confess. She simply said, "That wasn't supposed to be found." It was enough. Rachel Monroe was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. And all because a box landed 2 doors down from where it was meant to go. The arrest was quiet. Rachel Monroe didn't resist when officers placed her in handcuffs outside her home. She didn't ask what the charges were. She didn't ask for a lawyer right away. She simply said, "I always knew it might come back." During interrogation she remained composed. Clinical almost. She didn't cry. She didn't deny knowing Jeremy. But she refused to answer the question everyone was waiting for. Did she kill him? Her attorney advised silence. But investigators kept pressing, and after hours of circling she finally spoke. "He didn't suffer. I made sure of that." It wasn't a full confession, but it was enough. Enough to confirm what they had already built through digital forensics, timelines, and the weight of circumstantial evidence, stacked like bricks around the truth. The prosecution didn't need a body. They had a motive, a plan, a voice memo, and the one mistake she never saw coming, an accidental package placed in the wrong hands. And so, 5 years after Jeremy Holloway vanished, Rachel Monroe stood in court for his murder. What she thought was perfect, unraveled with a single human error. The trial lasted 11 days. Rachel Monroe stood accused of first-degree murder, without a body, but with a mountain of evidence built from the ground up by a single misplaced package. The prosecution presented a methodical case. The insurance policy, the burner phone, the trip to the cabin, the digital search history, and Jeremy's final voice memo. They painted a picture of premeditation, of a woman who didn't act out of rage, but out of calculation. A slow burn, not a sudden flame. Her defense argued there was no physical evidence of a murder, that Jeremy could still be alive, that everything else was suspicion dressed up as certainty. But the jury didn't see it that way. When Jeremy's sister took the stand, playing the audio file where he named Rachel as the person to fear, the courtroom fell completely silent. On the 11th day the verdict came in. Guilty of first-degree murder. Rachel Monroe was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called it a case defined not by chaos, but by control. For 5 years Jeremy Holloway's family lived in limbo. No answers. No closure. Just silence where a brother, a son, a friend used to be. They mourned someone whose name still appeared on missing persons lists, whose photo still faded on flyers pinned to old bulletin boards. Rachel Monroe's arrest didn't bring him back, but it gave the family something they hadn't had in years: the truth. They held a memorial that summer. Quiet. Private. His sister said she finally stopped checking parking lots and waiting rooms, looking for a face that had been gone far longer than she wanted to admit. As for Rachel, she remains a chilling reminder of how calmly evil can hide. She wasn't the face of rage or revenge. She was order, control, calculation. And if not for one human error, a package with the wrong name, she might have lived the rest of her life untouched by consequence. This case taught investigators something else too: that even the best-laid crimes fall apart not from brilliance, but from something small, insignificant, forgettable. The kind of mistake that cracks everything open. It's easy to think that evil always reveals itself loudly, through anger, chaos, violence. But sometimes it's patient, calculated, quiet enough to sit next to you and smile. Rachel Monroe almost got away with it. Not because she was clever or lucky, but because she knew how to disappear behind routine. What stopped her wasn't a confession. It wasn't a tip. It was a package left at the wrong house. A detail. A glitch. A mistake. And sometimes that's all it takes to unravel everything. This story unsettled you? Good. It should. Subscribe to CrimeCortex for more stories that expose what hides beneath the surface. And tell us in the comments, do you think Rachel always planned it, or did something in her finally snap? We want to hear your theories. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and never stop seeking the truth.